What is up, YouTube? Today in this video, I completely revamped the mechanics of my game entirely. This is actually going to be a two-part series. In this first part, I was able to fix up the menu screen and all the buttons. I was also able to completely revamp my in-editor level editor, which is like what I use to adjust the levels and stuff like that, like what I use to adjust the waves and how many enemies spawn and all that stuff. I completely revamped it, so it worked. But anyways, let's get straight to the video. So the first, I wouldn't say this was a major adjustment, but for one of the first big things I changed was I learned about what tweening does. Tweening, which you might not know what that is either, unless you're a game developer too. But it's pretty much it smoothly changes something between two things. That doesn't really make sense. Pretty much, I used it for the buttons and how the buttons work and that make the buttons work and stuff like that. And so that when the mouse goes over it, it zooms in and gets bigger. And when it goes away from it, it zooms out, gets smaller, pretty much, as you could see. And beforehand, I was using animation players. I was connecting it to the script. I had to animate each and every single button thing, every button press. It was just a huge, tedious, unnecessary process that I was doing it on. And I didn't know tweening existed at all. It pretty much saved the project. And then to over exaggerate it, it saved the project. So I was able to optimize it a lot, fix it, make it look nice, and so that they're not all before it was kind of rigid and staticky and kind of annoying when I did it. But now it looks all smooth. They're all in their own thing. They're not dependent on each other and stuff like that. And it just looks nice. It just looks a lot better than it did before. And that helped out the title screen and the pause menu and all that stuff. It helped out a bunch, which is one big thing that I changed. So for the next big thing that I changed, this one was huge. I completely changed the level editor script. I completely scrapped it. I restarted it, started from nothing, and just started replacing everything. And I just completely revamped it because it was super messy. A lot of the buttons didn't work. It didn't make sense. It was disorganized. Half of the things, like I said, they just didn't work. They didn't make sense. It was just so messy. I really didn't like it. I just genuinely didn't like it. And I really wanted to get it fixed. But I realized it would be a huge, tedious process going between every single thing, going through every single thing and changing it. So I just decided to scrap the old one and start fresh. So I added all the variables. I made a good understanding names and removed most of the on-ready things so that I could just use the unique ID, the little percentage thing, because it just works so much better. It's so much better. And I completely fixed the in-editor level editor, and it was working really nice. But one of the things I was having troubles with since beforehand was getting the selected enemies to work. So the enemies I choose to have selected actually only spawning those enemies. That was one of the big things I was having troubles with and wasn't able to get. Thankfully though, I was able to use an alternative source to figure that out. AI. Yeah, I kind of did use AI, with the whale or shark or whatever it is. Surf shark, I don't know what it's called. But I used that, and I've used AI before on projects. It never works. It's always terrible, and I end up just deleting it and just figuring it out on my own. But this time, one attempt in, the second I pasted it in, I tried it, it was perfect. Worked exactly how I wanted it. And this was a huge surprise because, like I said, I use AI a little bit, I very little, because I couldn't even a lot if I wanted to, because it never works. But this time it worked, and that got me really happy. I don't plan on using AI very much more at all throughout my project, but I'm really glad I used it here because I could not figure this out. I was spending hours on hours trying to figure out how to link the selected enemies and all that stuff. Worked. So annoying. But anyways, I was super glad I got that to work. So I got the level editor working. I got that all figured out and situation and stuff like that. But I had one immediate problem after fixing it. The enemy navigation agent was completely broken. I have no idea what happened, but the enemy navigation just broke. It discombobulated. I have no idea. Like, ever since I changed it and I deleted the old script and had no way of recovering it to its exact form, so I was like, I have no idea what to do here. And once again, I spent like an hour thinking about how to fix it. So I went through again, I went through everything I did. I went through the enemy code and stuff like that, and I just couldn't find it. So I decided, why don't I just start the navigation agent from scratch? So I did, and it still didn't work. I didn't understand what I was doing wrong at all. So I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Why don't I just scrap navigation agents? And what if I kind of what if I made the enemy climb over obstacles to get to you, and maybe like jump, and like instead of having it navigate through all these things, it kind of just does a straight path and automatically overcome any obstacles it gets in the way. So I was like, sure, I'll try to figure it out. I'll try to figure something out. I'll like test it out. Also, the enemy, while I was resetting the enemy things, I used the little green dude to test it out, and it kind of just made him black for some reason. I don't know why that. But anyway, I started from scratch for the enemy movement, and I set it so that it goes straight towards you, and I was like, I don't know how to get it over. So I was like, let's see if the on wall function, like checker, would work. But when I tested it out, it actually worked. The enemies were like running up on you. They were climbing the wall. And so I was like, okay, this is looking pretty good. So the enemies kind of like climbing after you. So you have no really like safe place to live. And obviously I didn't finish it. I mean, this looks really rough, but so I continued working on the enemy script, and I thought, okay, I have this sky map, and I don't really know where I was going with this sky map thing, but like, just in case I wanted to have some kind of sky map, I want them to be able to jump across like big gaps to get to you. I was like, how the heck am I gonna make them jump? So I looked through the available code, like all the checkers and stuff like that, like the built-in code functions and stuff. I found this one where it gets the distance between the player and the enemy, and it kind of calculates, like, I made it calculate like the jumping power and based off the distance, and I made it adjust the gravity so it kind of like hovers over to you. So like, regardless the space, there's a solid 75% chance it'll get to you. And I tested it out, and it actually worked. Like, the enemy was chasing you, it would jump huge distances to get to you. This black ball with bombs would jump huge distances to get to you. It will climb walls to get you. Now, this is kind of getting off track from the enemies, but I tested out this parkour map. I don't know. Tell me how y'all think of parkour to this game. It kind of defeats the purpose of it. And after a little bit looking back on it, I really didn't really like the parkour. I mean, maybe as like an extra or something unrelated to the core mechanic of the game, because it kind of defeats the purpose, like of grabbing enemies and stuff like that. And I don't really like. I plan on having it maybe later on. But sorry y'all, but that's all I had for you today. I'm gonna get the next video out. The part 2 out the part 2 is gonna be out like